Okay, so think about your brain for a second, not like this fixed thing, this landscape that's always been there. Imagine it more like a city, a bustling city. It's always under construction. Every single thought you have, every action, every habit, it's like you're laying down new roads, paving them, making them stronger. But then what about procrastination? That feeling of being stuck in this massive, endless traffic jam, always taking that same old detour. You might think, well, that's just me. I'm just a procrastinator,
Right.
a character flaw. But what if science actually shows us something different? What if you have the power, like the built-in ability to reroute all that traffic, to build new highways, super efficient ones that go straight to getting things done, making starting the easy default, not the struggle?
That's exactly what we're diving into today. It's a shift, really. We're moving past just understanding why we procrastinate. The emotions, the fear, all that. We're digging into the how. How can we actually use the brain's, frankly, astonishing ability to change itself, to shift those patterns, those really deep-seated habits? So our mission here really is to give you some powerful tools, simple science-backed exercises to build that momentum, to make taking action feel less like climbing a mountain and more like, well, just rolling downhill, effortless, automatic.
It's interesting because for such a long time, the belief was, once you're an adult, your brain's pretty much set,
Yeah.
fixed in place. We knew we could learn things, obviously, but the idea that the actual structure, the physical wiring could fundamentally change, that seemed pretty out there. And then came this huge revelation, neuroplasticity. Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, the seeds were planted way back. Donald Hebb in 1949 had that famous line, neurons that fire together, wire together. That was foundational. But the really mind-blowing stuff came later, people like Michael Merzenich in the 80s.
Yeah.
His work was groundbreaking. He showed through brain mapping that it's not just about adding connections. Our experiences actively weaken old connections, too. They prune them away if they're not efficient. So it's not just building new roads in that brain city analogy.
Right.
It's also about demolishing the old clogged up streets, the detours that lead nowhere. Your brain's basically this active construction site, constantly tearing down and rebuilding based on what you do and think.
That demolition part.
Yeah.
Wow. That really changes things for me because it means we're not just, putting a sticking plaster over the problem. We're talking about changing the actual layout,
Yeah.
the architecture of the mind. And suddenly procrastination isn't this like moral failing you're stuck with. It's a problem with the current road network, a network that you can actually change, physically change, not just conceptually.
Exactly. Tangible physical changes. That's the core idea.
So, okay, if our brains can change like this, what does it really mean, practically, to rewire your brain for action? I keep picturing that landscape, with trails. And every time you put things off, you're stamping down that delay path, making it wider, easier to follow, almost like a highway to avoidance. How does our brain get so good at, taking that detour?
Yeah, it really boils down to efficiency and, crucially, immediate reward. You mentioned neural pathways, repeated actions strengthen those connections. That's standard. But with procrastination, the key is why that specific pathway gets so strong. Think about the habit loop. Cue dash routine reward. The cue might be a difficult task, maybe something you feel anxious about. The routine, delaying, checking your phone, making coffee, whatever. And the reward, this is the tricky bit, isn't finishing the task. It's the instant relief you get from not having to face the discomfort of the task.
Oh, okay. So it's rewarding the avoidance itself.
Precisely. You get a little dopamine hit for dodging the unpleasant feeling. And that immediate, albeit temporary, reward reinforces the delay pathway. The brain loves efficiency, so it starts defaulting to this well-worn path because it provides that quick fix, that instant relief. It becomes automatic.
Right. The path of least resistance leads to feeling better right now, even if it causes problems later.
Exactly. So our goal with rewiring isn't about forcing yourself down a difficult path with sheer willpower. It's about creating new pathways for action that become, over time, stronger and more efficient than the old delay route. We want to make starting the new automatic default when that task queue appears. Like, instead of that sinkhole of distraction you keep falling into, you're building a solid, reliable bridge right over it, straight to action.
I like that bridge analogy. It makes it feel less abstract, like something we can actually construct, piece by piece. So let's talk about laying those first bricks. How do we actually start building these new action pathways?
Okay, so it's really a strategy. It involves intentional repetition and kind of hacking your brain's reward system. The first big mechanism is lowering the activation energy. You know that overwhelming feeling when a task just seems massive? That's high activation energy. The trick is to make the very first step ridiculously small. So small it feels almost silly not to do it. People like BJ Fogg and James Clear talk a lot about this. It dramatically cuts down the friction, the
Hmm.
resistance that usually kicks off procrastination. And here's the kicker. Completing even that tiny step gives you a small, immediate dopamine hit.
Ah, so you get a reward for starting, not just for avoiding.
Exactly. It reinforces that new pathway, the action pathway, and it directly counteracts the anxiety that often fuels the procrastination in the first place.
Okay, that makes sense. Make it super easy to start. What's next?
Next is the straightforward power of repetition and consistency. Neuroplasticity isn't magic. It relies on consistently firing up those neural circuits you want to strengthen. Think about building muscle at the gym. You don't get strong from one massive lift, right?
Right, it's the regular workouts.
Exactly. It's the consistent, even small efforts over time. Same thing in the brain. Every time you choose that tiny action instead of delaying, you're doing a little rep for that neural pathway. You're strengthening it, making it wider, smoother. Eventually, that action route becomes more efficient, more automatic than the old procrastinate route. Your brain starts to prefer it.
So, small steps done consistently, building neural muscle. Got it.
Then, number 3, we actively harness dopamine for momentum. This is really interesting. Dopamine isn't just about feeling good after you do something. It's hugely involved in motivation and anticipation. Our brains release dopamine when we expect a reward, or even just when we're moving towards a goal. This is critical for keeping going. When you break down a task and you complete just one tiny part,
You get that little win.
yes, that little sense of accomplishment, it triggers a dopamine release, which then fuels your motivation for the next tiny step.
Wow.
It creates this positive feedback loop. Action, reward, more motivation, more action. You stop waiting around for motivation to magically appear. You actually generate it by taking those small actions.
Okay, so action first, motivation follows. That flips the usual script.
Completely. And the final piece, number 4, is environmental design and cue management. We touched on cues earlier. Your surroundings are literally full of triggers for your habits, both the good ones and the bad ones. Procrastination often gets set off by specific cues, maybe seeing a huge pile of work or just a notification popping up on your phone. So by consciously designing your environment, you can remove the triggers for procrastination and, just as importantly, add triggers for action. Put the phone in another room, lay out your gym clothes the night before, have your work tools ready to go.
Making the good choice the easy choice.
Precisely. It's not about more willpower, it's about reducing the friction for the action you want to take, making it the path of least resistance.
That really paints a clear picture. It's not about finding some mythical source of infinite willpower. It's,
Yes.
a, it's about understanding how your brain works and using that knowledge. Designing a system around yourself that naturally encourages action. It takes the pressure off, knowing it's not some, fundamental flaw in you, but a pattern you can actually change.
That's the empowerment right there.
Okay, so we know why our brains build these delay highways, and we know how neuroplasticity lets us rebuild. But the big question is, what do we actually do? What are the concrete steps to start laying down these new tracks for action?
Right, let's get practical. Strategy number 1, the 2-minute rule. James Clear really popularized this one. The idea is super simple. If a task pops into your head and you know it'll take less than 2 minutes, just do it right then. Don't put it on a list. Don't think about it. Just do it.
Like sending that quick reply email or putting one dish in the dishwasher.
Exactly those things. It seems minor, but it's powerful because it trains the habit of starting. It breaks that initial inertia. Plus, you get that tiny immediate win, that little dopamine nudge we talked about, which tells your brain, hey, starting things feels okay.
Okay, 2 minutes or less, do it now. I like that. What else?
Building on that is Tiny Habits from BJ Fogg. This takes the small step idea and shrinks it down even more. The goal is to make the new behavior so incredibly small, so microscopic that it's almost impossible not to do it. There are 3 parts. First, an anchor moment, something you already do consistently every day, like brushing your teeth or making coffee. Second, the tiny behavior, the new habit, shrunk down to its smallest possible version, like ridiculously small. And third, an immediate celebration. You have to acknowledge the win instantly. A little fist pump, a mental yes, whatever feels genuine.
You have to give me an example.
Okay, say you want to start flossing, but you always put it off. Your anchor might be, after I brush my teeth at night. Your tiny behavior might be, I will floss just one tooth.
Just one tooth.
Just one. And then immediately celebrate, nice, or did it.
The point isn't the flossing itself initially. It's wiring in the habit of doing something related to flossing right after you brush. Often, once you've flossed one tooth, you'll just keep going. But even if you don't, you still did the tiny habit. You reinforce the pathway. I use this for writing. My tiny habit was, after I pour my morning coffee, I will open my writing document. That's it.
Just open it.
Just open it. Some days, that was literally all I did. But maybe 80% of the time, just opening it was enough to get me typing for at least a few minutes, often much longer.
Yeah.
It bypassed the, ugh, I have to write feeling.
That's clever. Okay, what's strategy number 3? Implementation intentions. This sounds fancy, but it's basically if-then planning. You pre-decide exactly when and where you're going to do a specific task. It takes the decision-making burden out of the moment. So instead of a vague goal like, I need to exercise more, you create a specific plan. If it's 7 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then I will put on my running shoes and go outside. Or, if I finish lunch, then I will immediately spend 15 minutes processing my email inbox. It creates a strong mental link between a situation, the IF, and the action, the AASN, making it much more likely you'll follow through automatically.
So you're eventually programming your future self.
You are. You're reducing the need for willpower in that future moment because the decision is already made.
Okay, 2-minute rule, tiny habits, if-then planning. Got it. What else is in the toolkit?
Another classic, especially for bigger tasks, is the Pomodoro technique. You break your work into focused intervals, typically 25 minutes, separated by short breaks, so you commit. Okay, I'm going to work only on this report, no distractions, for one 25-minute Pomodoro. Then you take a 5-minute break. After maybe 4 Pomodoros, you take a longer break. It works because it breaks down overwhelming projects into manageable chunks. 25 minutes feels doable. And each completed Pomodoro feels like a mini accomplishment, giving you that reward hit and building momentum.
Right, it tackles both the too big to start problem and the focus fading problem.
Exactly. And finally, let's circle back to environment design, or sometimes called pre-commitment. This is about deliberately changing your physical surroundings to make action easier and procrastination harder. We mentioned putting your phone away. Other examples: setting out your workout clothes the night before, keeping a book you want to read on your bedside table instead of your phone, arranging your desk so the only thing on it is the task you need to work on. You're making the desired action the path of least resistance for your brain.
It's striking how none of these are about, just trying harder. They're all psychological tools. They work with your brain's wiring, lowering friction, providing rewards, building consistency, managing cues. They're not just productivity hacks. They're ways to actively leverage neuroplasticity.
That's precisely it. You're using the brain's own rules to change the game.
This idea of rewiring is so powerful, but I know there's still a lot of common beliefs out there that can kind of get in the way. Myths about procrastination. Let's tackle some of those head on.
Good idea. They can really sabotage progress if you believe them. Okay, myth number 1. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, applied to brains, basically. The reality: neuroplasticity completely debunks this. Your brain retains the ability to form new connections, learn new things, and change its structure throughout your entire life. It might take more conscious effort than when you were younger, sure, but the capacity for change is absolutely still there. Lifelong procrastination habits can be broken. Your brain is always ready to adapt.
Okay, so age is not an excuse. Good to know. What's next?
Myth number 2. Overcoming procrastination is all about willpower. Just grit your teeth and do it. Reality: willpower is finite. It's like a muscle. It gets tired if you overuse it. Relying only on willpower is setting yourself up for failure. Sustainable change comes from understanding those habit loops we talked about, designing your environment smartly, making the action easy. It's about working with your brain's tendency towards efficiency, not constantly fighting against it with sheer force of will.
Right, strategy over brute force. Makes sense.
Myth number 3. You need to feel motivated before you can start a task. You have to wait for that big burst of inspiration. Reality: this is usually backwards. As we discussed, action often creates motivation. Getting started, even reluctantly, even with a tiny step, triggers that dopamine release, builds a little confidence, and makes the next step feel easier. Momentum builds from action. Don't wait for motivation. Generate it by starting small.
That's a big one, waiting for the mood to strike. It really does when you need it.
Exactly. Okay, myth number 4. All habits form in 21 days. This number is everywhere. Reality: it's largely a myth stemming from a misinterpretation of some research from the 1960s. Actual studies show habit formation time varies massively, anywhere from 18 days to like 254 days or even longer. It depends on the person, the complexity of the habit, how consistent you are. There's no magic number. The real keys are consistency and patience, not a deadline.
Okay, so ditch the 21-day pressure. Good. Yeah. And the last one.
Myth number 5. Procrastination just means you're lazy. This one carries a lot of shame. reality. It's almost never about laziness. Procrastination is typically much more complex. It's often tied to emotional regulation, avoiding feelings like anxiety, fear of failure, self-doubt, overwhelm, or even boredom. Sometimes it's perfectionism. It's usually a coping mechanism to deal with uncomfortable feelings, not a lack of desire to work or achieve.
That's so important. Shifting from self-blame, I'm lazy, to understanding, okay, what feeling am I trying to avoid here?
hmm Debunking these myths feels, well, liberating. It allows for a more compassionate approach and a more scientific one, too. Takes the moral judgment out of it.
Absolutely. Understanding the reality frees you up to use the strategies that actually work.
So we've covered the science, the strategies, the myths. Looking ahead, where is this field going? What does the future look like for helping us become masters of getting started?
Yeah, it's a really exciting time. The convergence of neuroscience, psychology, and technology is opening up some fascinating possibilities. One area that's growing fast is personalized habit coaching, often using AI. Imagine an app that doesn't just give generic advice, but actually learns your specific procrastination triggers,
Yeah.
your emotional patterns, the times of day you struggle most. And then it could offer really tailored suggestions, specific tiny habits, optimal if-then plans, maybe even real-time prompts based on your calendar or location. Hyper-personalization.
Wow, like a truly smart coach in your pocket? Kind of, yeah. Then there's the deeper neuroscience. As we get better at mapping the specific brain circuits involved in things like task initiation, focus, and overcoming resistance, we might see the development of more targeted cognitive exercises. Not drugs necessarily, but specific mental training designed to strengthen those action circuits. Or maybe more sophisticated neurofeedback and brain training tools.
Neurofeedback. Like watching your own brainwaves.
Essentially, yes. Learning to consciously influence your brain activity patterns to promote states conducive to focus and action. It's still fairly early days for widespread use in this context, but the potential to directly train your brain for initiation is, well, pretty intriguing.
Definitely sounds futuristic.
It does a bit. But the overarching trend, I think, is this integration across fields, bringing together the psychological understanding of motivation and emotion, the neuroscientific understanding of how the brain physically changes, and the technological tools to deliver and track interventions. It's moving towards a really holistic approach, not just managing behavior, but actually facilitating brain-level change to make action more effortless.
So the future isn't just about better to-do lists or time management apps. It's about actively, consciously shaping the physical structure of our own minds. Creating a brain where getting started isn't this constant battle, but just the natural thing to do, the default setting.
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We journeyed into neuroplasticity, saw how our brains are constantly under construction, capable of being rewired. And crucially, that procrastination isn't some fixed personality flaw. It's just a set of really well-practiced neural pathways roads that can be rerouted. And the way to do it isn't through massive leaps, but through these smart, consistent, tiny steps.
That's absolutely right. And remembering that key principle, action creates motivation. You don't wait for it, you build it. And willpower, it's valuable, but limited. Better to save it by designing your environment and using these tiny, repeatable behaviors that work with your brain, not against it. We've busted some myths, looked at the science, the practical tools. The power really is there to change these patterns.
So here's a final thought for you listening. This whole journey, rewiring your brain for action, it doesn't start with some huge monumental effort. It starts with one single tiny step. Right now. What's one small action, something that takes less than 2 minutes that you could do right now to start building a new neural pathway? Maybe it's opening that document. Maybe it's putting one thing away. Maybe it's writing down one if-then plan. Just remember, your brain is always listening. It's constantly adapting to the signals you send it with your actions. So start small. Celebrate those tiny wins. Genuinely feel that little victory and just watch. Watch as your capacity for action starts to expand. You can make sense of your mind one conscious choice at a time. You can reclaim your power from the procrastination paradox. Your brain is ready for the rebuild. The only question is, are you?